Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, May the 6th meeting of the Meridian Transportation Commission. It is 3:31 by the clock on my computer. We'll call the meeting to order. First item is the roll call. Mr. Ballard. Mr. Shoemaker.
Here.
Mr. Lancaster. I am present. Tracy Hopkins. Stephen Lewis.
Here.
Jared Smith.
Here.
Jared could barely hear you. If you're going to talk in the future, you
How
need to
about
get up on the
this?
mic. Jared's here. Tom LeClaire. Ayun Song. Ex officio members, Mr. Wasson. Ms. Kloppenstein.
Present.
Ms. Carson, I saw come in.
Present.
Alyssa Taysom. Justin Price.
Present.
Sergeant Smith.
Here.
Tricia Murray.
Here.
Heather Hill and Caleb Hood are both present, and Mr. Song is racing into the door. Welcome. Last time we saw you, you were sitting on an airplane doing this. Okay. I'm going to call on Sergeant Smith. She has backup today, and she's going to explain why.
Yeah, I want to take the opportunity to introduce a new traffic corporal for our team, Corporal Trevor Weitzel. He'll be replacing Corporal Goodspeed. He's retiring this month. So I wanted to bring him to introduce him to everybody and so you can get familiar with what we do here.
Yes, sir. A little bit about who you are and where you came from.
Yeah, moved here from California in 2014, and then I started at the Meridian Police Department in 2016.
Okay, well, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Be safe out there. Okay, the adoption of the agenda. I believe we have a staff change to the agenda. Ms. Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we recommend moving up item number 6 to after the transportation project updates to accommodate Brook Green and the update on the Linder Road concept study.
Okay, move item 6 up to right after the transportation project updates. Anything else from anyone? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item is the approval of the minutes of April the 1st. Comments or a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mr. Song, second by Mr. Ballard. Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next item is the transportation project updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So beginning on page 6 of the packet, there's quite a few updates to projects. I won't go over all of them in detail, but just kind of calling attention to ones provided by ITD staff, recommending looking through those. Those were provided directly from staff, and so we just kind of copied them over. We hadn't received updates in a few months, so those are on pages 10 through 12 of your packet. And then additionally, Kim Warren in Parks provided us 2 new updates on the Pathways project. So I thought I'd just kind of highlight that and give you the opportunity to review those at your leisure rather than kind of read through all those pages of updates. But I can stand for any questions if you have them.
Questions or comments from anyone? I've got one thing or maybe two. At the top of page 11, the bolded part from ITD, I believe it should start with the word construction underway on the new I-84 interchange. It doesn't make sense to have the I-84 to nowhere comment that's in there. And then down in the Houston to Chinden one, there's a couple of places the next to last and last line that talk about interchange, both of those should read intersection. And I talked to Dan Gorley about both of those, and he agreed. So a little transcription problem there. Anyone else?
No.
Okay, moving along. The next item, per the changed agenda, will be the Linder Road Concept Study Update from Mrs. Brooke Green, who is present online. Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, fabulous. Well, I want to say thank you so much for the accommodations to switch the agenda up so I could go first. Just to quickly introduce myself, I'm Brooke Green. I'm the Senior Transportation Planner within Projects and Planning at ACHD. I have presented to you prior, actually this past December, and I'm here just to quickly give you an update. When I met with you last time, we discussed primarily the Linder Road project from Ustick to Pine. And at that time, we were just going out to the public with our new renderings. So I want to bring you the results of the public hearing, kind of go over what we heard from the public, and then also talk about next steps. So I'm going to go ahead and get my PowerPoint ready really quick. Hold on just a moment. Can you see my slideshow or my slide deck?
No, ma'am.
Okay, let me see if I can share this really quick with you. Oh, I think there's an error with my slide deck. Well, we'll go ahead and use it, but I want to, there is an error, but we'll work through it. All right, hold on just a moment.
There, it's come up, and if you want to full
All right.
screen it, that would be okay too.
Perfect. All right, well, I just noticed an error on the PowerPoint, and once we get to that point, I'll explain a little bit more to it. We had an issue uploading our PowerPoint. I'm actually here in New Orleans for a conference. So I do just want to recap. Again, I'm just going to give you a briefing of the project itself, kind of walk you through what we heard from the public, kind of go through some of the renderings. When I met with you last time, it was very high level, and we're at that same point. It is very high level. We'll go over starting from one portion of the corridor. We'll walk our way towards the other portion. But before I do so, I just kind of really want to recap where we have been. Let me minimize my photos of all of us. When we met with this has been going on for a little over a year now. And when we originally started down this path to reevaluate Linder, we had a couple of things that we want to ensure that we did, but more importantly, create a roadway that provides for a higher level of traffic stress for bikes and pedestrians. In addition, take into account the growth that we're seeing here in the valley, more importantly there in Meridian, and how we can accommodate future volumes of vehicles navigating through that space. But we also have to be cognizant. This happens to be a corridor where we have got quite the pinch point, and that pinch point has many front-on housing. And so that is one of the constraints that we had going into this project, and one of the considerations that we need to ensure we addressed. Some of kind of the community engagement that we've taken place, I've met with several of your folks who actually walked the corridor with us. In addition to that, we have met with our PAG and the BAC who participated in that walk. But something I do want to highlight was our extra effort in addressing and speaking with our property owners along the corridor. It was incredibly important that we got out front early on this and discussed, what was this going to look like, primarily for those properties who affront Linder, because any proposal that moves forward will have consequences, and those consequences are these people's homes. And so we have had a series of property one-on-one meetings. We started early on in August, where we just met with them to give them a heads up this project's coming down the pipeline. And then furthermore, as more renderings came out and alternatives came forward, we met with them once again. And then as that continued, we met with them in December before we went out to the public, because it was important to us that we did not blindside them with any of these alternatives, that they really did have a good picture of what they can anticipate. And as a result of that, now that we've had this public engagement and we've gotten the feedback from the public, we are now having that engagement once more with the property owners. So I just want to continue along the corridor and just give you a recap of what you're looking at. So we have West Pine Avenue, and the corridor is West Pine Avenue all the way up to Ustick Road, and it's Linder Road itself. There are several attractors along the corridor, which you're quite familiar with. You've got the Meridian High School, you've got Barbara Morgan Elementary School, and then you also have the park. And these attractors do generate a lot of foot traffic as well as kids who are navigating through that space on their bikes. And that was one of the considerations going into this and some of the proposals in which we're making. Just to quickly give you an idea of where we're at and what I consider essentially our path to adoption. As I highlighted earlier, we started this back in December 2022 with that initial survey outreach to the public. Continue that along. We did a lot of our data collection, our modeling throughout several of those months. June through September 2023 was our first alternative development where we went to visit with our commission. And we also started our property engagement at that point. We went back to our commission November 2023 prior to us going out to the public in December. And that was also actually when I was here with you as well. We met with you guys to give you kind of a high level presentation, what you can anticipate. We recently did a check-in with our commission a couple of weeks ago to go over the same stuff on which I'm going over this evening. And that's where we're at today, is we're visiting with you as the Meridian Transportation Committee. Meridian City Council presentation has been bumped back to June, but also what we're doing right now is we're meeting with the property owners along the corridor to give you a picture of what that looks like. We have 36 properties potentially impacted as a result of whatever alternative moves forward. Thus, we're meeting with 36 property owners who have responded. This will take a little over a month to complete as we do these meetings in the evening times via Zoom. And so it will take some time before we actually find out. But I want to talk briefly about the property owner meetings. Right now, our property owner meetings have come from the first phase, which was introduction, the hellos, here's what you can anticipate. But now we're asking them the question, what is your preference? More or less, is your preference that we purchase your home, or is the preference that you stay in your home? And so we are starting to have that dialogue with the property owners, because what we are finding is several of them are very comfortable with their homes being purchased. And so that question is being asked in each of our meetings, and we're documenting that. So should we get back closer to an adoption, hopefully this summer, we'll be able to convey what the property owner's wishes are. So I'm going to go through three concepts with you. The 3 lanes with a shared use road. I'm going to go through the 5 standard lanes. I'm going to go through the 5 standard lanes with a shared use road. And if you can recall, that shared use road was primarily to be able to provide access for some of those homes in that pinch point that live along the corridor. What you see before you is kind of what that cross section potentially could look like. As it pertains to the 3 lanes, this is our smallest footprint. It is providing for retaining and preserving as many of the homes through the corridor as we can. But as a result of that, any preservation of the homes is going to require us to give them a different approach on how they get into their homes. Shared use road was our approach to that. We did hear when we went from the commission, the Meridian City Council, they were a little bit concerned of that shared use road. To highlight what a shared use road as this pertains to this location, it primarily is a space in which enables those who are traversing to their homes, somewhat like a long driveway, to give them access to their driveways. So I'm going to continue along the corridor. I'm going to walk us through the corridor itself. I'm going to start us here at West Pine Avenue. We're going to walk towards Ustick, or drive towards Ustick. And along this path, I'm going to give you some of the highlights in which we're going to encourage or we're making recommendation. What you see here, West Pine Avenue, this is just to kind of help orient you. This is Meridian High School. Just to give you an idea, this is the north arrow. So we're going to be driving essentially north. But I want to just kind of highlight some of the enhancements and the recommendations we're making at this location. What you're seeing as the footprint itself, the pavement footprint, is what you see there today. The difference, however, is the recommendations for multi-use pathway to be on both sides. So you're going to see the suggested multi-use pathway recommended. You're also going to see a suggestion for a pedestrian hybrid beacon at this location, and that is to ensure that we're giving comfortable space for kids who are trying to access the high school to be able to safely cross this location. You're also going to see where we start pinching back down to the existing conditions as they are today, with the exceptions of the recommended pedestrian facility as a multi-use. But one thing I do want to draw your attention to is these landscape medians that we have on both of these aerial visuals. I'm going to start on the top aerial. I'm going to walk us down to the bottom, and we're going to continue on. This is a lot to go over, and so I'll do the best I can to orient you. So moving to the second aerial visual that you see here on the screen itself, you're going to see the continued recommendations for landscape medians through this whole corridor. You're also going to see at this location the suggestions for a rapid flashing beacon. This is primarily to provide access for those who are using the existing low stress bikeway. They come through here and then they will cross and continue down onto Slendy Slope. This is a bikeway that we already see a lot of use in. We just want to ensure that there is a safe crossing at this location added. I do want to highlight, we do run into our first constraints along this corridor. And if you can see my cursor here, or go ahead and see that yellow circle, those are 5 homes. These 5 homes, if we make a recommendation, anything bigger and larger than a typical sidewalk, then we are going to impact these 5 homes. So in this rendering, what we are suggesting is that those who want to continue on the multi-use pathway, they'll continue on the multi-use pathway only on the west side. On the east side, we're making a suggestion that recommended detached sidewalks, and it's so we can preserve these 5 homes at this location. This is the only location along the corridor where we had to make some modification to the pedestrian facilities, and it really was just out of preservation for those 5 homes. Continuing along the corridor, we're going to go north. I want to orient you to the top aerial visual. Again, you're going to see continued recommendations for landscape medians, but it's also at this location we're going to see our start to see our first pinch point. In addition to that, our first recommendation of 2 roundabouts. So this is Sandalwood, and the second roundabout recommendation is there at Chateau Drive. This is also the pinch point along the corridor where we are making a recommendations for that shared use roadways. You can see them. Let's see if I can find my cursor. You see the introductions of the shared use roadways at this location, and they're both, as I mentioned in a previous presentation, these are one-way. Continue down to the aerial visual below. You're going to continue the recommendations for the landscaped medians. In addition to that, the 2 shared use roads. We are recommending at this location between Sandalwood and Chateau that the landscape medians go the whole segment, and primarily it's to ensure access control and to make sure that folks are utilizing the shared use road, and it's actually preventing people from trying to get out onto Linder from their driveways. Continuing on, you're going to see the suggestion for the second roundabout along the corridor. What quickly orient you, here's Tully Park, and this is where you're going to see continued recommendations for the multi-use pathway. This is what that visual looks like itself. If you wanted to look between Sandalwood and Chateau, this is what that looks like. I piece them together to give you better visual. This again is the pinch point, and a lot of our recommendations and a lot of considerations had to take place at this location because the number of property owners who front this location and who are currently having to navigate onto Linder. The shared use roadway was primarily just to give them access to their driveways, continued access to their home without having to navigate or try to get across Linder from one side. Continuing along the corridor, I just want to draw your attention. We're just crossing back over Tully Park, and this is where we're going to see the Linder Meridian pathway connection. There are several options as it pertains to 5 Mile Creek. So the first option I'm showing you right now, because we're not changing the existing footprint necessarily of the roadway itself, we are not impacting 5 Mile Creek to necessitate the need to tile it or to cover it. And so do you want to just draw your attention at that point? Instead, we're making the recommendation and you just provide a pedestrian bridge over the creek itself, move the multi-use pathway closer to the homes, primarily because this is actually a steep grade and it's going to be very difficult to put the multi-use pathway there. And then you continue on your way towards U-Stick. Do want to come back to the top aerial, just want to highlight another another pedestrian hybrid beacon at that location to help facilitate folks who are crossing. So this concludes the first presentation of the 3 lanes. So I'm going to walk us back into the standard 5 lanes, and this is where I noticed there is an error, and so I'll talk you through the, that slide here in a moment. So the standard 5 lanes and the standard 5 lanes with the shared use road, they are the largest footprints. Standard 5 lanes that I'm presenting before you has a footprint of approximately 89 feet. This is multi-use pathways on both sides with tree-lined buffered landscapes and tree-lined median and 4 travel lanes on both sides at approximately 11 feet. Do want to highlight the standard 5 lanes has the greatest impact to property owners along the corridor itself. Primarily because for us to ensure the footprint of 89 feet available is going to require us to purchase several of those homes that are front Linder. So I'll walk us quickly through here, and you're going to see some of the errors with the yellow boxes in itself. I'm sorry, this is It doesn't walk us through here, the corridor itself. So I'm just going to, as this one, I'm going to jump to the pinch point along the corridor here. All the same standard treatments that I suggested on the 3 lanes still apply, but this is the corridor. I do want to just highlight right here with the error in the PowerPoint. I'm unable to show those other ones, but what you're looking at is Sandalwood to Chateau. This is the pinch point. And why I draw your attention to that is the yellow boxes and the hatch marks. This really indicates the number of properties that we're going to have to purchase should this be the alternative that moves forward. 36 properties of the whole corridor will be impacted in some way as a result of either the standard 5 lanes or the standard 5 lanes with the shared use road. This is kind of what that visual looks like. This is the pinch point, Sandalwood to Chateau. The 5 standard lanes and the 5 lanes with the shared use road have different recommendations for these intersections. So I do want to highlight Sandalwood being here in Chateau. Chateau would actually be a signalized intersection as a recommendation. All of these property owners, we've met with several of them along already several times. And I will tell you, those who reside on the east side are eager to sell their homes. Those on the west side, we're meeting with them once again. Several of them wanted to stay put, but we'll see how that changes as we talk to them a second time. I just quickly want to go to the 5 lanes with the shared use road. The shared use road, this segment, 96 feet. This is our largest segment recommendations that we're making. Something I want to highlight that I changed as a result of meeting with you, as well as meeting with the Meridian City Council, which was when we made this presentation and made the suggested option. One of the things that we heard back was this concern with the shared use road. A lot of people from the Transportation Committee, as well as from the City Council, expressed concerns about people sharing that space, whether it be kids navigating through that space or whether it be, folks on site on bikes navigating through that space and having to share it with those who are using it as a driveway to get to their homes. So one of the recommendations, because we had available space on the east side, because we're acquiring all the homes on the east side, we made the suggestion that to add a sidewalk to that shared use road. So it'll be a sidewalk, a shared use road, and as buffer, as you can see here, if you can see my cursor. Continued footprint practically stays the same as the recommendations I made just there early, just the slide before, for travel lanes, landscape medians. But because we are acquiring all the homes on the east side, we're making the suggestion that a multi-use pathway continue through this segment. So quickly, just want to walk you through what you weren't able to see on the previous slides. The applications are still the same. So Pine, orient you, here's Pine Avenue, here's Meridian High School. Here's the existing footprint as it is today. The pedestrian hybrid beacon is a suggestion that applies to both the 5 lanes with the shared use road and the 5 standard lanes. Landscape medians are the same. And then you see these hatch marks. These hatch marks are recommendations of purchase. These are homes that, as a result of any type of treatment option that we suggest, either the 5 lane standard or the 5 lanes with the shared use road, because the footprint is much larger, these are homes that we're going to have to acquire as a result of the suggestion. Moving along the corridor itself, we get to what I consider that pinch point that is between Sandalwood and Chateau. It is, again, in this option, we're making the suggestions for a 2-lane roundabout. So you essentially have this pinch point through the corridor bookend by 1 roundabout on each side. So this is, again, landscape mediums up to the roundabout itself. All the hatch markings indicate homes that we're going to have to purchase as a result of if this option moves forward. I will tell you, when we first met, we thought we would potentially be able to save all the homes on the west side. However, after laying out the roundabout and doing some maneuver modeling, it became evident that we would have to find ourselves purchasing 4 of these homes right here on the west side. I've already met with one of the property owners. And I can say she's comfortable with us purchasing her home, and we just have other property owner meetings scheduled here in the coming months. Continuing along the corridor to the other pinch point on the second aerial at the bottom, you come up to Chateau. Again, it's that all of those homes on the corners will certainly have to be acquired to accommodate the large footprint of the roundabout. I will take a moment really quick to explain how you would get access to the shared use road. If you recall from my December presentation, If you were going north and say you live on the west side and you're going north, you would actually go up around the roundabout and then access, essentially go south and access your shared use road at that point. So you'll have an entrance here that'll enable you to get onto the shared use road. The shared use road itself, it is not going to be the same pavement asphalt that you would see essentially on Linder. There will be some considerations in design to add some traffic calming elements to that to discourage people who may want to use that shared use road to cut through. That has been brought up. But those are all elements that we can incorporate in the design phase to ensure that we minimize and decrease any of those folks who may want to utilize that space to cut through. It really is just to be able to provide access for the property owners who reside there on the west side. Orientia, once again, Tully Park is down here at the corner. If you will see where my little arrow is, we'll continue on the corridor itself. This again just gives you a depiction of that really condensed space. This is the most narrow space along the corridor. We spent a lot of time on this. This gives you a really good visual of what that potentially could look like. If you'll see my cursor over here, these were the homes that we were hoping to preserve. We're not necessarily sure that's going to be possible. However, I will say in design, should this be the option that moves forward, we do have available space here on the west side that we may be able to realign the best we can. But right now, we want to be incredibly transparent with the property owners. We're having those tough discussions with them about what their preference is, purchase or to stay. And like I mentioned earlier, I did meet with one of them who said, go ahead and purchase. Continuing along the corridor itself as we get closer to USTIC, just to quickly reorient you to where we're at. This is Tully Park in the Linder Meridian pathway. Again, that's suggestions for pedestrian hybrid break-in to get across. Again, because this footprint is so large, we are going to have to make some changes to 5 Mile Creek, whether we will have to cover it, we will have to provide some additional pedestrian facilities. In this suggestion, we're making the suggestion that the multi-use pathway comes further closer to the homes and then goes back up to the road. The other option that is available, and these are discussions we can have in design, we certainly want to incorporate any discussions with Meridian Irrigation District, certainly with the city of Meridian, what their preference is, but there is an option to put the multi-use pathway back near the homes or keep the multi-use pathway right there along Linder Road through this whole corridor itself. So those are just discussions that we can have when we do finalize what option we want to see move forward, but more importantly, certainly with our stakeholders and help them make that decision. And then, of course, you see there down at the bottom, the depiction of USTIC and Linder, that is currently existing conditions. As it is today, however, we are making the suggestions for the multi-use pathway at that location and that would continuous multi-use pathway through the whole corridor. Do want to kind of quickly recap what we heard from the public. To give you an idea, we had 2.8 thousand people who visited. We had about 448 folks who participated in the surveys. But what you're seeing here is what the preference is from the public. Just a recap, concept 1 was the 3-lane design with the shared use road. We had about 20% of those who preferred this option, loved it or liked it. Concept 2, which was the 5 lanes, we had approximately 45.6% who preferred this option. And then we had concept 3, 5 lanes with a shared use road, approximately 28.3% of the folks preferred that option. Quickly, just to recap what that looks like, you're seeing right here is the suggested or total cost associated with the projects itself, being the most expensive piece, being the right-of-way acquisitions, total cost there you've got depicted. I do want to highlight, we've done some recalculations. And so the total cost between the standard 5 lanes and the shared use road are actually closer. They're approximately about 34 million. So I do want to say that 39.1 million is a little inflated. We did some renumbers and we looked at the actual right-of-way costs and did some recalculations of the construction, and those numbers are closer. Do you want to kind of recap where we're at? Again, this is the path that we've taken to get adoption. I'm here in May But I wanted to just kind of highlight, besides speaking with you guys as the transportation committee and getting your feedback, the Meridian City Council presentations coming back up. And as I've mentioned several times through this, the property owner meetings are something that we're actively doing. We'll continue to do all the way up until adoption as we're able to get those scheduled. And this essentially concludes my presentation. I'll stand for questions.
Ms. Green, I don't know if you mentioned it and I missed it. How many homes have to be acquired under the three concepts? Do you have that?
Yes, I do. So if we anticipate the 2 footprints, the 5 lanes, it's approximately, and I say approximate because until we get out there and do the design and actually finalize which one, we anticipate about 36 homes in total. And some of those homes are duplexes. And so while their partial footprint might be smaller, there's 2 homes on one. And especially where we talked about that pinch point between Sandalwood and Chateau, there's several duplexes there on the west side that we would be acquiring.
So that would be concept
3 and 2 and 3.
Concept 3 is 36. How many in concept 1?
Concept 1 is the 3 lanes, and we don't anticipate any partial purchases on that one. I will tell you those 5 homes that were abutted the sidewalks, those are likely to be the homes that see any type of significant parcel impacts. But as of now, we don't anticipate purchasing any homes for concept 1, which is the 3 lanes.
In concept 2?
Concept 2 is the largest footprint, that's 36. Concept 3 is the shared use road. And we anticipate, well, the number just recently changed. So I want to say it's in the 20s. So the concept 3 allows us to preserve. And if you want me to see the screen really quick, let me pull it up for you so I can walk you through it.
And I'm not suggesting that governs the decision. I'm just trying to get an idea of what the impact is.
Certainly, it's certainly a big discussion point. So this is concept 3. This is 5 lanes with a shared use road. The hatch markings indicate parcel purchases. What you're seeing here between, here's Chateau, here's Sandalwood and here's Chateau. It was our hope to be able to preserve as many of these homes here as we possibly could. However, with these homes right here, about 4 of them were not, when we originally went out and we've done some modifications, we're now concluding that we're going to have to purchase those. So it's approximately, I would say, because it's hard to gauge, but we anticipate 36 in total if it's the larger footprint one with the multi-use pathway on both sides. This one we anticipate it about 28 we end up having to purchase.
Okay. Questions from Ms. Green?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Need you on the mic, please.
Meeting, so I'm not
Oh.
familiar with the formalities. So I'm Ben Foch with HDR. I just want to say that it's 27 on the third concept. 27 homes on the third.
So 0, 36, and 27?
The first concept would actually be 3 homes.
3, okay.
Oh,
Yep.
And the
Thank you.
second?
Second would be around 36 or 35. It kind of depends
And
between
you said 27 on the third?
27 on the third.
Okay, just get some idea of what the impacts are.
Yeah, I'm sorry about.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, questions? Silence is deafening.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Green, either you have done a perfect job or you've given us so much information, they don't have a clue what to ask.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Carson,
I don't have a question, but I was wondering if I could make a comment.
please.
So just from a taxpayer perspective, when considering the cost of this project, it also includes ongoing cost to taxpayers to bus students across the 5-lane road as that whole area that's east of Linder right now can walk to Meridian High School and Barbara Morgan. And this going to 5 lanes, that will forever be bused after this. So
Thank you.
ongoing taxpayer costs.
So let me ask a question.
Mr. Ballard.
Why would you bus if it's a shared path?
We don't generally let elementary age students cross 5 lanes.
Okay, solve one problem and create another.
Mr. Chairman,
Lewis.
I don't have a question, but I'll just make a quick comment. We've talked in the past about Linder and about many other of our north-south arterial roads. And this section of Linder, of course, to the south of Pine and to the north of Ustick are 5-lane facilities. And it's one of our super north-south roads, I'll call it for lack of a better term, because it's one of the longest north-south roads we have in the valley. Starts in Eagle, goes to Cuna, and it has a Boise River crossing, and it will very shortly have a I-84 crossing. So it really has the potential to carry a lot of trips. And I think I think having a 3-lane section in the middle of this very attractive north-south road is a bottleneck in the making. That's why I have supported the 5-lane options. I voted for option 3, I think, in the poll, but I could see either of the 5-lane options being better, in my opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Green, anything else for us on this?
No, I want to say one thank you, and I will go ahead. There is the PowerPoint was missing a couple slides, so I'm gonna send we had a problem getting in, so I'll send you the revised PowerPoint so you can get a good visual of that on your own time. But want to say thank you guys for the opportunity to present before you. We anticipate that we'll hopefully take this to adoption here this coming summer. Your feedback, the Meridian City Council feedback is incredibly important. I know my commission is going to want to hear what you guys have to say. So in the meantime, if you have any follow-up questions or if I could be of any assistance, please do not hesitate. But certainly want to hear what you as the commission have to say about this. In addition, what the Meridian Council has to say. And so we can be good partners as we move this project forward. I'm here to provide any assistance.
Okay, and with that, we'll thank you very much. We really appreciate it. It's not always simple, is it? Okay, moving on. The next item on the agenda is updates to the Meridian City Code, provisions regarding commission duties, powers, membership, qualifications, and meetings. And Mrs. Emily Kane from the City Attorney's Office is going to explain what she did last Tuesday afternoon when she knocked this out.
Right. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm Emily Kane. I'm a deputy city attorney in the city attorney's office. I work with Tishra. I am here to tell you about some upcoming changes to the Meridian City Code. I'm going to start with the context to tell you why I'm here. So there it goes. The reason I am working on this is because in the citywide strategic plan, one of the objectives is to update the ordinances and simplify processes. And so this is actually the legal department's only assignment under the strategic plan. So that task has fallen to me. I'm working my way through the entire city code, and I'm not really going in order, but at this point I'm up to Title II, which is the title that governs commissions. So the plan is that all of these titles will be checked off. I have completed Title VII not going in order. And I'm giving myself credit for updating the zoning code, even though I had nothing to do with that, but it's under control. So I gave that one a check mark as well. So this somewhat belies the fact of that I have made other progress, but we're still kind of working behind the scenes to get all of them done. So hopefully by Christmas, everything will be checked off here. But right now I'm working on Title II. So Title II, again, governs commissions. There's the Transportation Commission, and then you have a cohort of other commissions, the Historic Preservation, Solid Waste, Arts, Parks and Rec, Planning and Zoning, and then the Board of Adjustment. We're gonna change the name of that, but that is also going to be a commission. There are commissions that are in other titles, such as the Compensation Committee, and I guess these are bodies, not all commissions. The Meridian Districting Committee, the Impact Fee Advisory Committee, and then we also have bodies throughout the city that do either ad hoc work or they have ad hoc membership requirements. So members come and go. It's more fluid than commissions. The Meridian Youth Advisory Council, the Meridian Anti-Drug Coalition, and the Senior Advisory Board. So we're kind of bringing everyone together under one roof to make it more uniform throughout the city and to streamline those respective provisions. So the way that I'm approaching this is I'm moving the redundant provisions that are in each commission's separate code into one general section for all advisory commissions. So an umbrella section that applies to all of the advisory commissions. I'm updating the language to reflect your current activities and functions. Yours is less outdated than maybe other commissions. Some commissions really haven't had an update for a long time and it doesn't match what they're doing. Yours wasn't terribly out of date, but this does streamline some of what is in your current code. It clarifies roles and responsibilities between staff and commissions. Again, you didn't have too much overlay, but to the extent that there was some overlap, we took that out or clarified that. For my own selfish purposes, but I wanted to clarify the application of the Title 74 transparent and ethical government rules, open meetings, public records, and ethics laws. Again, you don't have those issues. You follow those and comply with those. It's clear what applies to you and what doesn't. And finally, to make uniformity in the structure of the code for each commission. So this is exciting code updates. The plan, I'm here on the first step to update you on what's coming, and then I will just show the draft to City Council, and then hopefully they will adopt it. So I'm here today to kind of show you what I have come up with. In your packet, you have the track changes version that shows the changes that I'm planning to make and the kind of clean copy, which is much easier to read. I'm going to, this is pretty dry, but I'm going to just run through from top to bottom and hit some highlights. I won't read it to you, but just to give you the overview of what's going on in Title II and the proposed changes. So it starts with this umbrella provision that I was talking about, the advisory commissions. There are 4 different categories of bodies and groups in the city. You'll fall into advisory commissions. Those are established by city code. They focus on city functions and make recommendations to City Council and to staff. Statutory commissions are they're planning and zoning and the Impact Fee Advisory Committee, and those are established by statute and operate pursuant to statutory mandates and also city code, but that they're creatures of statute, state statute, I should say. Those ad hoc committees are just the specific interest areas and the kind of more fluid membership. And then standing committees are those that focus on specific kind of internal actions, which will be the Board of Adjustment, or what we're now going to call the Assessments Review Committee. So there's a lot of moving things around and clarifying and consolidating. That was what primarily will affect the changes in the Transportation Commission's specific code. Again, you are really well run. You have bylaws, you have a chair and vice chair, you do an annual report. So that's not new to you, but that does now apply to every all of the advisory commissions. This code does clarify that volunteer commissioners cannot enter into contracts or apply for grants. Those are some issues that we've seen in surrounding jurisdictions, not really in Meridian, but we wanted to clarify that so we don't have any volunteers kind of going rogue if representing the city or making binding agreements, which please don't do that. I don't think you do that now, but don't do it. And then entering private property, again, you don't do that, but volunteers can't do that. And city representatives really can't do that without permission of private property owners either. Speeding up, the general provisions will be the same for all committees, how they're appointed, the minimum age, the size, the youth commissioners are not compensated. Term is 3 years. The process for filling vacancies and partial terms, kind of the just housekeeping that is working well for Transportation Commission and generally our other commissions, but now it will be clear and uniform for all advisory commissions. I'm going to move on. Excuse me, yes.
Is this on? Yeah, okay, it's on. Hi, Mr. Chairman. So on these, I'm just gonna pop in when we
Please.
come to it. But so this vacancies and reappointments, after 2 terms, the commissioner can be reappointed by a unanimous vote of the council. Is that the way it is for all the commissions, or was that just us? And why is that a good idea, I guess?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, that is how it is now, and that is how it is for all commissions.
It is.
And the policy is not my department, but it does set up some buy-in from city council, some oversight from city council when commissioners are being reappointed to multiple terms. So it's not exactly term limits. As it is now, after, commissioners can reapply essentially for their own seat after the term expires. But this is not new, and it is the way it is for all commissions.
Okay, well, that clarifies that. Thanks.
Okay. Zooming through the but budgetary provisions, the expenditures provisions were updated for clarity, simplicity, and again reiterates that volunteers cannot bind the city by contract. That's kind of a hot topic in our area at the moment. It clarifies that staff and the city attorney will be appointed to support commissions. I believe you already have a provision like that, so that's not new. There was some redundancy with regard, or excuse me, redundancies, removing redundancies and clarifying when meetings are held, and establishing that, there must be a quorum, open meeting. These are all open meetings law rules that you all do very well. So now I'm moving to your specific provisions. Each advisory commission will have the structure of their code will talk about the establishment. So why does the commission establish? What does it do? Duties and powers. What are the commissioners authorized to do, or rather the commission as a whole? The qualifications. So who can serve, and then when does the commission meet? Just the meetings. I did some rewording and clarification and eliminating of redundant provisions in your in the Transportation Commission's code. I consolidated, this is all pretty general because it's in front of you, but the output is that it is more streamlined and hopefully reflects what you currently do, and it doesn't repeat that over and over. I think I've covered what I need to, or the highlights, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lewis?
just one question, maybe 2, but just one question for sure. Excuse me. On the meetings section, the 214 Part D, I know that was cut down significantly, and it's almost like the same paragraph in our bylaws that talks about, the first Monday of the month. But the sentence that's not here in the code, but is in our bylaws, it has a second sentence saying if it falls on a holiday, which happens twice a year, every year, that will meet on the following Monday, on second Monday. And I was going to ask if the language we have in our bylaws, could that be copied up here to the draft code?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, the bylaws do need an update. I'm glad that you brought that up because yes, there's some inconsistencies, or there will be, there may already be inconsistencies, and there certainly will be once this code is passed. There are a number of commissions. The Historic Preservation Commission comes to mind. They're later in the month, and so Thanksgiving and Christmas always mess up their schedule. I did change theirs to say they'll meet essentially 10 times. So we can, and not in November and December, but they can always have a special meeting. So we can do something along those lines. I'd recommend that it stay as general as possible, and that when your meetings do fall on a holiday, that they are canceled and then there's a special meeting called, which is, I believe, what you're doing now. And if not, it's because that's noticed at the beginning of the year as a regular meeting. So there's some kind of housework that needs to happen at the beginning of the year, or just as you go, because I know that some years that matters and some years it doesn't. And I think that's true for all commissions, especially the ones that meet on Mondays. That really tends to matter. So it's, I'd still recommend the streamlined version, but I will take a look at your bylaws and see how to marry them up. And if not streamline, then clarify, especially given the consideration of holidays.
Okay,
If I
thank you.
may, the bylaws, as best I read this, were done by the Transportation Commission. And the city code is done through your office with the agreement of the city council. Which governs? Or we're going to get it fixed so they don't conflict, so we don't have to worry about which governs? Just in general terms.
Yes, Mr. Chair, so the city code trumps your bylaws because you have to
Okay.
operate according to city code. So my office did write your bylaws, and I know that your body customized them to a degree. I'd like another run at the bylaws just in general, because there are a lot of redundancies, which leads to those conflicts or inconsistencies. When the code changes, then the bylaws are out of whack. And there's no need to reiterate in the bylaws what we already have in city code, in part because the city code is what really matters and what governs where there is a conflict. So my vision is that there would be more, not generic, but more uniform bylaws. Those could be shorter too, especially to the degree that they repeat what happens in city code. But I do think that's what needs to happen next, is the overhaul of the bylaws to make them match the city code.
And that falls to who? To this commission to decide to do, or to your office to decide to do?
That will fall to me. That's on my list of things to do. And of course, you'll be involved much as this is happening. But you know, the Transportation Commission bylaws are very similar to all the other commission's bylaws, in part because I wrote them and I cut and pasted and we customized as we went. So it's definitely something that needs to be done, because the bylaws will be even more out of whack when the city code is updated.
There's one thing in the bylaws that's always bothered me, and that's the 2-hour limit on meetings. I've never really run into that anywhere else before. We live by it. I spend the last 15 minutes of a meeting watching the clock so we don't break the rules. When you get into doing that, we'll have to talk about that. Mr. Hood, a question for you. When we have had a conflict on a Monday with a holiday, have we officially canceled that meeting and then declared a special meeting for the following Monday, or have we just moved it?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, good question. We actually work with the city clerk's office. They do cancel that regularly scheduled meeting and have a special meeting. Typically, if you'll recall, September, right, Labor Day always happens where we cancel that one and have a special. That's typically where we try to do our mobile workshop or tour. So, and the January ones kind of depend. Sometimes we just cancel and there isn't a special meeting. We just don't have a meeting. But yeah, we work with the clerk's office to cancel our regularly scheduled first Monday of the month meeting. And if there is another meeting before your next regularly scheduled one, we'll do a special, they'll call a special meeting. But that's largely done by the clerk's office, not I don't do it.
I didn't remember us declaring a cancellation and a special meeting. It's handled in the clerk's office. Okay, that's fine. That move you along just a little bit, Mr. Lewis?
Yes, sir, I'm good. Oh, you know, the 2-hour limit is a check on the chairman's power. You knew that, right?
No. You were pretty finished and waiting for more questions?
Yes.
More questions,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Leclerc.
So we have an ordinance review subcommittee, and so I think should look at the bylaws, and maybe we can meet on June, is it 2nd? The next Monday afternoon before our main meeting. So, yeah, I think it's the 2nd, so like at 2:30. And so I think we should plan to do that if that's okay with everybody, and we'll look at the bylaws. Do we need a motion to recommend these changes go to city council?
I've got questions. I'm not ready to send them yet.
Okay. All right. I think I'm pretty good. Okay, as long as I have this, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. So this has our ordinance, our section has a bunch of these, a bunch of language about who the members have to be. It kind of makes us a little exclusive, I think. Should all that, do you think, should all that maybe be moved as a preference to appointing to the commission into the bylaws, or should we leave, do you have any problem leaving all that? It's like 4 members are at large and one's a youth commissioner. That's standard, but there's business employees and business owners and employees, all these qualifications for appointments. And I don't know how much the mayor follows that anyway, but I mean, whoever he or she is going to appoint who they want, and that's how it should be probably. I mean, qualifications matter, and we could put preferences in the bylaws rather than have qualifications for appointment in the code. So it just seems like I'd hate to have someone file a complaint over someone's appointment, and it just sounds like a mess ready to happen. So that was the concern I had about that section.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Leclerc, so this presentation is largely informational, and I'll take the feedback that I get back to the mayor and city council. So the mayor has reviewed this provision. I haven't audited the Transportation Commission's membership, but to the extent I have in other commissions, I can tell you the mayor's office does follow the code pretty religiously when it comes to making these appointments. So I believe that as it's written is the intention of the policymakers with regard to the representation on this commission and who they want on here. I will say you're making a very good point about making rules for ourselves, because then we do have to follow them, and it's violating them is a mess. So that's good feedback. I do think that this is one that is working, which is not the case where we're that specific in other contexts or in other commissions. So far, so good, though. If that's not correct, then that's definitely something I'd want to take back to the mayor.
Commissioners? Lancaster.
Mr. Chair, I have a question out of curiosity of how the sausage is made with this. So where this is a revised ordinance, is it treated like a new ordinance with, readings and public testimony and all of that? Or is it consent calendar kind of stuff? Or how does, ordinances like this, how are they revised?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lancaster, so you're right, this is an ordinance, so it would be, the statute requires 3 readings in front of city council, or council can move to waive the second and third readings and just have one, which is probably likely in this case. The statute does not require a public hearing, and this is more the public input that probably this one will receive. I don't know that city council will have a public hearing on this. It's on the record. It will be at their regular meeting if and when it does move forward. And I would anticipate that it would be all happen in one reading instead of 3. But if it's controversial, or if the public does have an interest, then city council does tend to have public hearings even when it isn't required by statute. This is not one that I would anticipate that they do that.
Thank you.
Okay, my turn. In the middle of your page 2, regarding the youth commissioner, number 3, I guess C3, you took out at the time of appointment regarding age. You see where I am?
I do.
Why delete that?
Mr. Chair, I can only guess at my motives and probably to just trim the fat, but if do you
Mr.
think it
Song
adds
doesn't, Mr.
something.
Song does not have any fat, I can assure you.
Agreed. I think I read those words to be somewhat extraneous, simply because the appointment is the moment at which the qualification attaches. However, if Commissioner Song turns 18 during his service, certainly he's not disqualified as a youth commissioner.
I'm not suggesting that he would be.
No.
I was just struck me as odd to take that out. Same page down at the bottom, number 6, talks about partial terms. I didn't read this every single word, but I wasn't sure I could follow exactly how partial terms are handled. If Commissioner Lewis moves to Dakota next week and resigns the commission, and the mayor seems that he wants to go ahead and appoint somebody, is that done to finish out Commissioner Lewis's term?
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
And does it say that in here?
I do read it to say that, because it says to complete a vacating commissioner's term.
Okay, all right. And then at the top of your page 3, I'm questioning why take out what was number 6?
Mr. Chair, this was moved to Title I. So Title I is
So the list is still kept somewhere?
correct.
Thank you. That's
Yes.
all I wanted to know. And then your page 4, the next to last paragraph, you struck 2, 4, 5 lines of the establishment and purpose. I think I could understand taking out the part that begins with other federal, state, and local agencies, including but not limited to Ada County, et cetera. But personally, I felt that leaving in that the purpose was concerned with transportation planning and the safe and efficient movement of vehicular and pedestrian traffic throughout the community. That strikes me as a little more we're here for a reason as opposed to just filling up the room on the first Monday of every month. So a
Mr.
suggestion on my part.
Okay, thank you. That's a great suggestion. I'll move that forward.
And we talked about the bylaws, and I think that's all I had. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr. Song.
just one clarification. Thank you for that presentation, by the way. That was very informative. Just one question about the termination clause. I believe it's C, if I can find it here. But yeah, the termination clause. It says if you miss one half of the meetings, then the mayor can terminate you. I was just wondering what that might be in case of people joining through Zoom, as I did last month with the Transportation Commission. Would that technically would that be considered missing a meeting or?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Song, no. You can attend remotely. Commissioners can attend via Zoom or actually over the phone if necessary. The law allows that, and we do accommodate that through our technology. So
Cool.
if you're here in some form, that counts as being present.
And to clarify, missing half of the meetings, that's in a calendar year, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Song, yes, the proposed language is to clarify that it would be in a calendar year. That's actually a pretty controversial provision, not again with this commission, but other commissioners have had to sort of make the argument that the rolling 12 months did not include their 6 absences. And so it's honestly very confusing. So this is an attempt to make that more clear.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, ma'am. You talk about job security. I think you've got it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda will be the Amity Locust Grove intersection discussion. Mr. Brian McClure. Welcome.
Commission, happy to be here. Included in your meeting packet was a memo that highlighted some of the project history of the Locust Grove and Amity intersection project. I'm here this afternoon in case you have comments or suggestions on next steps regarding that project. Broadly, the project started as an interim intersection more than 3 years ago and has been canceled or morphed in scope several times. And is currently, as the city is aware, is on an indefinite pause. The mayor recently sent in a letter to ACHD asking that project to be resumed as an interim intersection. Of late, there's been an uptick in congestion with some pedestrian crossings and cyclist crossings on a city pathway in particular that have been obscured. There's also more than 2,000 units under construction entitled or pending entitlement on Locust Grove and Amity at Lake Hazel within a half mile of that area. So the city has some concern with just additional development pressures on the existing situation. I'm happy to take any comments or feedback you have on an interim intersection request. We also have Ricardo here, who is an ACHD Capital Project Manager Supervisor, listening, and then in case you have any specific questions.
Mr. Lancaster.
Mr. Chairman, so I read your memo, Brian, and saw the struggles with with deciding what the scope is and making decisions and whatever. So, so is it still the city's position that we're asking what's in the letter written from the mayor dated April of this year? Is that right? We're asking that that some interim project go forward.
Council President Steed, Commissioner Lancaster, Commission President Commissioner Lancaster, that was the mayor's request in the letter. I don't believe that we have a official city position, so I'm happy to take any feedback you may have on that topic.
So what is it that you're asking us today?
Commissioner, President Steed, Commissioner Lancaster, that is a really good question. This is an opportunity, this is a status update saying more or less that the project is on hold. If you feels it's important or you have any suggestions on how to get it moving forward, if you have any other thoughts on it, I'm happy to take those forward for you. I don't have a specific ask or request of you.
If I may, the situation, correct me if I'm wrong, is that this was a project. ACHD dropped it as a project. I'm really cutting the flesh off the bone here. Dropped it as a project, and the mayor's come back around individually as the mayor, requesting that it be picked up and something be done. Is there more to it than that?
Commission President, that is certainly a concise way of summarizing the process to this date. There's always other things going on. For example, Public Works is having some struggles out there because they've had utility projects planned and it's been on and off again, and they currently don't know if the project's happening or when it may happen. It's just a stressful situation for.
I understand ramifications to all of that. Yeah.
But yes, the mayor has requested it move forward as an interim intersection again.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Hood,
if I
please.
can maybe address both of those comments / questions a little bit more. I think some of the mayor's train of thought, we've actually got him trained a little bit to vet these types of things through the Transportation Commission. So he's looping you back into some of those discussions that may have otherwise cut you out of this conversation, and it comes back with a final answer and we're telling you. So I think Brian and some of ACHD are here so you can hear some of that. And if you have any of that feedback to share with the mayor and council as they elevate it further or have that conversation furthered, you're at least brought into the conversation and again, have an opportunity to be part of that.
Lancaster?
So, Mr. Chairman, I guess I will request a reminder, and perhaps Commissioner Smith can help with this or anyone else, but where did we put this intersection and project in our priorities list?
I think, can you find it if I give you the list?
Mr. Chair, I think Heather's looking at getting the Excel file too, so.
Well, while we're doing this, Mr. Chairman. may
Yes,
I
sir.
ask a question? Mr. Chairman and Mr. McClure, so I'm not sure I've seen this language indefinite pause pending direction by the ACHD Commission. So it's been, this note here was in December, and I guess, what does that mean to ACHD? Does that mean it's just postponed indefinitely until one of their commissioners decides to bring it up again, or in other words, mostly dead? Or is there some process going on at the staff level to resurrect this and come up with a new proposal that just hasn't been done yet? I guess between that is what's the scope of reinventing this interim project? Thanks.
Commission President, Commissioner, as far as I'm aware, there is no plans to do anything until they widen the intersection per the integrated 5-year work plan. So there's no interim intersection until ACHD Commission directs otherwise, as I've been told. ACHD may have some other thoughts on that that I'm not privy to.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think I have an answer regarding the priority ranking, if I'm looking at this right. So Amity and Locust Grove are kind of looking at the programmed list. If you remember that this year we had a program list and a not program list. We were asked to kind of rank both of them. So there are 3 instances of Locust Grove and Amity Road being discussed. 2 of them are in the top. 2 of them are in the top like 13, and then the actual pedestrian, the interim signalized intersection itself is, I think, approximately number 20, if I am doing my math right, or 25 or so. So bit of a complex answer. The area is a priority as far as the already programmed projects are, but the interim pedestrian intersection facility itself was not in the top 10.
Mr. Chair, I just want to provide, we had it as number 28 on the programmed list for ACHD for this year.
I'm sorry.
Number
Thank you.
28.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm also looking at the list you handed me and I see it show up at,
That's the one I found sitting behind the mayor's
Yep.
chair, so I'm not sure what version that is.
at number 15 for Meridian to Locust Grove, number 28 for intersection, and number 33 for Locust Grove to Eagle on Amity. So I think that's what Commissioner Smith was referring to. So I guess my initial thoughts about it, Mr. Chairman, are we just did this prioritization, right? And if we want the prioritization to mean anything, then we should probably say these are still our priorities and not jump our own list. So I guess that's my initial thought is, if we made these priorities, those are our priorities. And if we disagree, we should change them next year.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Shoemaker.
Thank you. I drive down here frequently with where we work and where we're building, and I know this area has been kind of a disaster with Lake Hazel being closed for a long time and Amity, and I don't know if this is just kind of come and gone with how construction and closed roads have come, but yeah, this is not a fun place to have to drive through. But there has been a tremendous amount of road closure down there. And I wonder if it's just the whack-a-mole game we play where we close a road and it forces everyone up to Amity to get, to Meridian or because Eagle Road was closed. I don't know. I may think this is just a symptom of closed roads occasionally.
Mr. Chair,
Got a question?
can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Were, just for clarification, were the priorities set, to Mr. Lancaster's point, with the understanding that this project was already programmed?
Mr. Lancaster, you know the answer to that? Mr. Hood, anybody?
Mr.
I mean, if the question is, yes, I think, right? But I don't know that each individual commissioner or the council ultimately contemplated that. I will say, and I don't know if that fully answers your question, Miranda, but yes, I mean, certainly staff, that's why we have the 2 lists, programmed and not programmed. So that 28 is fairly high, right? When we have 70 or 80 some projects. And I'll also just say a little bit, and I don't disagree with Commissioner Lancaster's comment. The priority should be the priority. Shoot, we just did it. I think some of what the concern is here is that priority is so far out in the plan that an interim, something to do to bide time until we can do the ultimate. We aren't saying the ultimate should be higher on the list. We just did that. But rather it's that this is 28 and fairly low on the list of things to do. Can you put a Band-Aid on it for a little bit and buy us some 5 or a decade maybe of time before you actually have to blow it out? And I'll agree with Commissioner Shoemaker too. I mean, I do think all the road closures down there, I think a little bit of a, all these things are happening at the same time that may be casting a light that may not be a full issue, but certainly the traffic is heavier than it has been. And to wait until it's done according to the program. I think that's the request again. So sorry, I kind of went off.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. McClure, has anyone got a definition of what an interim facility would look like? Or we just do something, do anything, or what are we doing here?
Commission President, Steve, my understanding, and there's some assumption baked in here, is that they were requesting something more like what happened with Locust Grove and Victory some 10, 12 years ago, where that was an interim intersection for a long time to put a Band-Aid on it, and then they came back later on and did the full build out, which is a roundabout now.
But the interim intersection being what?
A signalized
What
intersection.
infrastructure?
A signalized intersection. So no widening per se, other than to accommodate some turning movements and minimal infrastructure improvements other than the signals. I say that there's a lot of issues out there though, so that might be a little disingenuous.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
One thing I wanted to mention just for clarification, and this could be different if on the sheets you have, I'm looking at the working document that we worked in with the subcommittee, and I think closely reflects things in the final version. But I think my understanding of what is ranked on the program list at 28 is the interim intersection, not a final one. So if that, I don't know if Caleb, if you have any thoughts on that. That's what I'm reading in the column describing. I think it says interim signalized intersection, unless that's been changed after the fact. So I just want to make sure we're also talking about not just the final, or not just what the product itself, but the final versus the interim version.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ballard?
I hear Mr. McClure make a suggestion to signalize, and I read that to say, what can we do to take some pressure off? I hear Mr. Shoemaker and a couple of other comments, and maybe I'm stating the obvious. There are more and more cars than anybody ever anticipated. And the construction is unbelievable in this valley. It's like driving in a maze. But that's a function of our growth. And so you go, what can we do to take some of the pressure off? Cars keep coming. I went on Eagle Road on Sunday afternoon, and it was as busy as I've ever saw it on a Sunday afternoon. Okay. So the point is, I think the question is there something short to take some of the pressure off of this intersection? And if that's a signalized solution, and that works short term, that could help us. That's my only comment.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Lewis?
I'll toss in a couple cents here. So looking at the priority list, the project mentioned in the memo is ranked number 19th, Amity Road widening from Meridian to Locust Grove. Pardon me, is that the right? Hang on, I got the wrong one. Wrong project. Okay, let me back up. So the design is currently funded, and the right of way and the construction are future. Is that correct?
Commission President Steve, Commissioner Lewis, I don't have the list in front of me, but that was my understanding looking in GIS a week or two ago, yes. That said, there's currently no work on the design or right-of-way acquisition that I'm aware of.
Okay, so then my next question is, it was being worked on and now it's not. What was the reason for the pause? Was it because of lack of funding? Because that always happens, right? Or was there I don't want to say disagreement, but a lack of understanding of what type of facility was wanted? You know what I mean?
Commission President, Commissioner Lewis, I think you're asking me to step into something.
Sorry.
No, honestly, I don't, I could speculate a lot. I think there has been some disagreement over what that ultimate facility should look like. I don't think the city asking for an interim facility or something that accommodates future widening north on Locust Grove in the future has ever been under question, though. The city's been fairly consistent on that. Certainly, there's been some issues with cost and how that gets addressed.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Probably we're all thinking the same thing, but this is what I'm thinking is some comments that it's in my coming into this, I kind of had this feeling that this was sort of the tail end of a project and it's not happening. And my concern when I read through this was if you know, I greatly appreciate the mayor's letter, and it's great to catch this sort of thing, and it's great to have this discussion here, and maybe not just in his office, but but so that's all positive. But this to me doesn't seem like a top shelf, top level urgent project when we have others that are ahead of it, really. And so I appreciate having the opportunity to look at this, but I'm not sure I'm too far away from ACHD on this to just put this aside and fund other projects that are of higher priority. And so since they ran into some troubles, it sounds like. So that's kind of my thinking. I don't know if other commissioners have more urgency than I do, but I'd be happy to listen. Thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Stone.
Just a little question that I had while I was listening to this. Yes, there's a lot of construction going on here. I fully agree with that. And if we were perchance to get this interim intersection, in place, if we were to do that, how long would that possibly take with this situation?
Mission President.
Take to get it in place?
Yes, exactly.
How long would it, if the Transportation Commission, the mayor, the city council, everybody said, we want an interim. If ACHD would say, okay, how long would it take to get it in? I think, is that your question?
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Commissioners, I don't know. I have no idea.
So, Mr. Chair,
Let's do it.
if I may, maybe we can piggyback that. We have ACHD reps here. It may be good, and maybe even save them a trip to a future council meeting if we can maybe get the mayor's questions answered that he asked you to hear. And I appreciate ACHD staff being here. Maybe they can give a project status update and maybe answer Commissioner Song's question too.
I've been looking at them and everybody looks the other way when I do. We have a volunteer. Come forward. Bravest one of the bunch.
Sure. My name is Ricardo Calderon. With ACHD, as Brian says. So he basically did a good job of what the status of this project has been. If we were to recommend an interim, right? I want to clarify what that means.
Please.
Right? It will be more than likely a 3x3 intersection. Like he said, we'll be adding another turn lane, just basically the turn lanes to all 4 legs, no pedestrian facilities. Okay? That's the whole reason why the ultimate has been in a little bit of trouble, right? If we were to do with the interim, we have to get a consultant under contract, correct? Design it. At least I would say 2 years before it be in the ground, because we need to try to program it within an integrated 5-year plan as well. But if that was the you guys' desire to do something, I just want to make sure that that's clear, that we will not be adding any pedestrian connectivity, no sidewalks anywhere. We'll just be strictly to help with the congestion of the traffic. But you're right, Commissioner Shoemaker, there's a lot of construction going on out there, so traffic has been diverted everywhere. Upcoming projects are going to be Lake Hazel and Eagle Road. That's going to shift traffic again. That's going to start later this fall. That's going to be under construction as well. So, but yeah, this project has had a lot of hiccups from not necessarily just design aspect, but what the ultimate configuration would be on Locust Grove, the north leg. That's another one. That's part of the reason why ACHD determined it was best to kind of put it on a strategic hold till we get a clear understanding of what we need to design. Because we're designing the ultimate, right? We don't want to get to 95% design or 99 and have to design the whole thing. So we need to try to get clarity on what the lane configuration is going to be on all the legs.
Would an interim push back an ultimate in terms of the calendar?
Possibly. I can't answer that right now. Looking at the integrated prior plan, we need to see where it will fall right now. The ultimate, if we were to continue with the ultimate, right now, again, we're in the middle of that, updating the projects. It'll be 27, 28 with the ultimate. If we build an interim, again, that'll be constructed in 26, give or take, right? By some 5 to 10 years, like Kayla was saying, Mr. Head over here. And again, the priority, it all depends on what you guys, the city will send our way and build it.
Mr. Lewis.
Chairman, well, just a comment, the interim that Ricardo's talking about is kind of similar to what ACHD built at Ustick and Black Cat recently. You know, they did some minor widening, and a temporary traffic signal at that intersection.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Lewis is exactly correct. It'll be exactly like what was built at Ustick and Black Hat. That one had already connectivity with sidewalks on all corners more than likely, so we did build some ramps. There was no connectivity, there was no connection at Amity and Locust Grove. So that's the reason why we're not doing any additional sidewalks, right? Part of the reason acquiring the right of way to even put some of this temporary, we like to not go back to the same property owners twice to acquire the right of way. If we were to acquire a right of way, more than likely our preference is to go and acquire the ultimate right of way, whether we build it or not. But we would have the right of way for when that comes. But for now, the interim will be very similar to Black Cat and Ustick intersection. And that one's, we got 5 years out of that one.
Is anyone able to say if any immediate additional construction in this neighborhood will make this intersection better or worse than it is today? Yes, we're going to do so-and-so a mile away, and it's going to push double the number of cars through here, or it's going to cut them in half. Anybody want to crystal ball that one?
Mr. Chairman, during construction, it's going to get worse. It will definitely help, right? Because right now it's a 4-way stop sign. That's what it is right now. So I've seen some pictures where the lane of traffic is half a mile long, right? Again, during construction of Lake Hazel and Eagle Road, that's going to get worse. Ultimately, it'll time it so everyone will get some time to get through that intersection. So in hindsight, it would benefit to get a temporary signal.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Lewis?
I will toss out a controversial comment right here. So as an alternative to a temporary signal, you could also do a mini roundabout, which will fit within the existing right-of-way footprint. You'd have less a temporary pavement, and it would work for a few years. Just toss that out there, Ricardo.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lewis, that can be something we looked at. Again, we haven't studied a mini roundabout because the ask back in 21 was to do an interim signal at 3x3. We just had additional time. So the 2-year time frame I was giving you, you might want to add a few more months to that. Because now we need to maybe look at if we can really do fit. But the looks of it, it looks like a mini roundabout could fit. That's a temporary, again.
Less expensive?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I agree.
You probably spend about 300,000 on a temporary signal and about 100,000 on a mini roundabout.
Okay, folks, we need to move on. What are we gonna do? And I'm not insisting on one. I'm just looking for somebody to say, we've done all we can do, let's move on, or okay,
I'll say,
go ahead.
I think we've done all we can do, and I think we have a prioritization plan, and we've looked at it and we put it there, and appreciate the letter and the time, and it's great, but when Lake Hazel opens up, I think this might go away for a little bit longer.
Mr. McClure, that's the best we can do for you, sir. Thank the mayor for sending this to us. ACHD, thank you for being here. We appreciate it, letting us put you on the spot.
No worries, thank you.
Okay, moving on, next item. ACHD Master Street Map Changes, Arterial Corridor Preservation. Mr. Hood, you and I talked offline about the clock. What do you wish to go ahead and do this, or what do you think?
Mr. Chair, I appreciate that. After the last agenda topic, I'm pretty optimistic that we can get through this in 25 minutes. Actually 10 or less, that we don't even have to start looking at the clock. I know we have some other updates and future meeting topics to discuss, but I think I haven't timed my presentation, but I'm thinking 15 minutes or so of your time, maybe?
Chairman,
Give it a shot.
ask you to add some room to the clock because I have a point I want to bring up at the end of this session.
Okay, Mr. Hood, go ahead.
In this commission's folder? You're not. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to pull up a couple of exhibits for you. As we're getting that up, or I can get it loaded here. A little bit of a refresher. So last month, I introduced this topic, shared some information in a packet about ACHD's Master Street Plan, their Capital Improvements Plan, or CIP. We talked briefly about the joint meeting that council had with the ACHD commissioners in January, and that general request that the city council had of ACHD to preserve for section line arterials to accommodate 5 travel lanes going forward. So this is a follow-up to that conversation that the elected officials had and that we had at the Transportation Commission last month. I'm going to walk through the master street map itself with you here in just a minute and discuss those potential changes. My hopes is that I can get some of that feedback, draft a letter that then I'll share with the mayor and council, do a similar presentation to them, just make sure we're on the same page with what arterial roadways we're actually talking about or not. There are, and I mentioned this last month, there are a couple of exceptions to the rule. So I'll kind of roll through those as we go into the quadrants of the city. First, just a little bit more on the MSM, or the Master Street Plan. There's actually a plan that is more than just a map. The map is a big piece and everyone wants to look at the map, but there's also a list of all the arterials in Ada County. I think it's about, it's 23 pages long of about 6-point font. So there, I didn't count them, but there's pages and pages of all the arterial sections in the county that's included in the map. So the Master Street Plan is actually an ultimate plan, right? It's not the integrated 5-year work plan that you're used to, that we just did the priorities that are a 7 to 8 year kind of plan for widening. It's not the CIP, which is a 20-year plan. This is the ultimate plan, right? That's what the Master Street Plan does. It says we're looking at 100, 150 years even. It's ultimate. So it also includes typologies. So it considers adjacent land uses and the context of the road. So should there be on-street parking? How wide should sidewalks be? Again, the context of a road is also considered in the Master Street Plan. I just mentioned the spreadsheet, but most of the plan is actually a lot of spreadsheets. So on the spreadsheet, it has obviously the street name, they're coded, the typology, existing lanes, planned lanes, preservation for planned lanes, right away, preservation. Again, I mentioned comments and then some other related studies and some other things on that spreadsheet. So a couple of just disclaimers or notes. When ACHD is preserving right away for 100 feet, that typically means or is a planning for a 5-lane roadway. However, what actually gets designed and built may be different, right? So that's the goal, but it's a pretty high level, the 100 feet, but that accommodates a 5-lane roadway. So if I say 100 feet through this presentation, that really is synonymous with a 5-lane road. And I might go back and forth. So 5 lanes is 100 feet, 100 feet. And 100 feet is not necessarily 100 foot right on the dot. 96, 97, 98, those are all synonymous with 100 feet. So just some clarifications. And same with 3 lanes, 70 feet, give or take. 70, 78 can all accommodate a 3-lane arterial roadway. So now I'm going to run through, looks like you did find that. Sorry about that. But thanks for pulling them up. So I've got the city broken down and Brian helped me into quadrants. So we'll start in the northwest of the city real quick. And this one actually is pretty straightforward. And again, you're all familiar with this. So McMillan. So this is one that we shared the letter. And this was really kind of the headliner of that joint meeting here earlier this year. The request is going to be to preserve for 100 feet, 5 lanes for McMillan through our area of city impact. So in total, there are 7 miles. What this will do, so on the next one, you'll actually see it a little better. I'm not going to hover here because that's really the only change. But there's a match line, right? So we pick up McMillan. Here are the other, oh, sorry, can you advance it one more? So here are the other 2 miles of McMillan that are also impacted by that request. What you don't really see on this map is east of is Boise, and that's already widened to 5, and McMillan is 5, planned and preserved 100 foot of right of way all the way to the east. So really this is a continuous corridor. It's really Meridian that at least currently is only planned to be 3 lanes going back to the county line. So this change really is about consistency on that section line arterial roadway and planning, preserving for up to 5 lanes on McMillan. So again, I feel like we've talked about that one quite a bit. If we want to talk more about it, we can, but I'm going to transition to some of the other changes that are also shown then on the second quadrant, the northeast part of Meridian. So both Meridian and Locust Grove, obviously there's 2 miles of each. Same deal. We just asked that ACHD preserve for up to 100 feet on both of those. So there's 2 more miles of each of those. And then we're to our first exception to the rule, and that is Fairview. And again, I mentioned this one last month as well. So the purple portion of Cherry, so that's between Linder and Meridian. I'm going to propose to council. First, I'm proposing to you. And if you want to go a different direction, then I'll carry that recommendation forward. But that Cherry Lane not be planned for 124 feet of right of way. So a 7-lane roadway west of Meridian Road. There are some pretty large constraints and obstructions to building a 7-lane roadway. I just don't think it'll totally change the character of the neighborhood in front of the middle school, the library, those neighborhoods that are there. What I would say, if you are in favor of preserving for 124 feet, maybe even consider taking that to the next mile, and that would be the 10 mile. I mean, if you're going to do this for almost the same conversation you just had with the intersection, for congestion purposes, and that's your main focus is congestion, you probably want to widen it even to the next north-south roadway that actually leads to and from the interstate, up to Chinden, those types of things. But again, the recommendation from staff is to change this a step down to only preserve for 100 feet of right-of-way. So that wasn't part of the conversation. That's fairly new. There's just an opportunity when we're asking for master street map changes, there's an opportunity for us to vet that through you and then council and then to ACHD. So we can go back to the first slide if you want to talk about that section of McMillan, but I'll pause here for any of these, the changes I've kind of walked you through thus far.
Everybody clear? Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question on the downgrading of Cherry. To the east of this that is planned for 7, correct?
Correct.
And to the west, 5?
Correct. So
Okay.
the intersection, sorry to interrupt, but yes, the intersection of Cherry and Meridian would be 7 back to the east, 5 back to the west. So it's not, there wouldn't be a bottleneck of sorts. This would be the end of the 7-lane corridor, again, coming in from Boise, 7 lanes all the way to here, and then not another mile, E5.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. I would like to do a little more research before I get behind a reduction there, looking at the projections and so forth.
Fine with me. What kind of research?
Well, let's look at the traffic projections from Compass primarily and see what's happening here in the future.
That's how I go home from here. I can tell you that it moves really well once you turn west on Cherry from Meridian until you get down to a half a block or something east of Linder, and then it repeats a half a block east of 10 Mile.
Yeah.
Because of the need for the signals, Mr. Watson, to move that north-south traffic on those 2 streets. So they have to give it up somewhere.
Mr. Chair, if I can insert again another, I will say I am okay coming back for another month too. I was originally planning to go to the city council on May 21st or 22nd, but the primaries, that's voting day, and then they ended up canceling. So now I am going to go actually June 11th. So if you need some more time, if that's
Okay.
what the commission wants to think about this,
Put an asterisk by that one.
So, but I would like to get through this, and then we can just touch it really quickly next month,
Okay.
hopefully, if we need to. Any other questions on this sheet?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
if I can offer comments again, the school district would be in support of not preserving that for over 5 lanes. We have several middle school students that cross at this location. If you remember, some of you, even before there was a crossing, the middle schoolers were darting across 5 lanes of traffic. I don't think anything's going to stop them from darting across 7. So.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
And then, so then back down to the southwest part of our planning area. Not a whole lot of things to note here. I will just quickly and almost to Commissioner Lewis's comment to look at this some more. The first one, the Overland extension. We did an airport overland study with the city of Nampa and ACHD and the Highway District back, it's been about a decade ago now, recognizing the need for overland to extend to the west and connect up with Airport Road in Canyon County. At that time, there wasn't any talk of State Highway 16 going south. Since there has been. So looking at some of the studies and why we thought preserving for only 3 may be needed on overland, I think was, we went through that exercise of what does overland look like going into Canyon County or coming out of Canyon County, however you want to look at that. I think that significantly changes some of our assumptions, though, if you have any version of a State Highway 16 heading south. Overland will need to be more than 3. So the request that we would say to ACHD is we'd like you to preserve for 5. And I'll also just say, and again, we've talked about this before, preservation really is about development opportunities. It's not ACHD going and knocking on doors and saying we need right away. It's as properties develop, and these 2 miles are yet to be developed. So I think there really is opportunity to preserve right away through when development occurs there. So it's 2 miles of change there.
Is there right of way through there today of any kind?
We reuse, I think, a little bit of it in pieces, but for the most part, no.
Okay.
It is a new corridor. Yeah. And then I'll go to Victory, and then I think we can even transition to the next. We'll pick Victory up on the match line on map 4. Just really quickly, but it is to me almost two stories even of Victory. The one that we just left on the west side of the county is largely undeveloped or underdeveloped, not in the city, unannexed property. And then as we head back to the east towards Boise, it is largely, as you can see on this map, more annexed and built out. I don't know, again, preservation is almost a misnomer on Victory here because you do have quite a few projects in development. I don't know that you'll ever get 5 lanes on most of what you see on the screen now on Victory, but I think it just helps with be opportunistic still as you see some of those parcels develop. We're not opposed to you acquiring 100 feet of right of way, and we'll figure it out in the future. If we ever need to widen it to 5, it can be, but I don't think Victory is going to be one of those corridors that gets widened, at least not the first half of it, if you will, in Meridian. Now, west of Meridian Road, that maybe is a different story. There is more opportunity there to really widen Victory. So I think it's just cleanest and simplest to ask ACHD to preserve for 100 feet of right of way. This is very similar to McMillan, quite frankly. Some of it's pretty constrained, but there is some opportunity on some of the corridor, but just to say 100 feet. And then we just talked about the intersection at Amity and Locust Grove. Ricardo mentioned part of the previous correspondences that the city have had with ACHD is preserve Locust Grove north of that intersection for 5 lanes. So again, McMillan and Locust Grove are really kind of the 2 big ones where we said, hey, ACHD, at least preserve the 100 feet. We're not necessarily asking you to widen it today to 5 lanes, but we may sometime. If the traffic gets that bad, if CUNA keeps growing like it's doing, we may need 5 lanes someday. So let's not just plan on Locust Grove being 3. So again, that's some of the back and forth and tug of war here at ACHD is they're not quite sure what the northern part of that ultimate intersection even looks like, because it may, city's been asking for Locust Grove to be 5 lanes south of Victory, which right now it transitions right there at Victory. It's 5 lanes between Victory and Overland points north, but south it's planned ultimately to only ever be 3 lanes. So that's another one to highlight there. There are 3 miles of Locust Grove, 1 mile of Amity, in the entire Victory corridor. So Columbia, again, just sort of standard rule. City just requested 100 feet of right of way there on Columbia and South Eagle Road as well. So some of that isn't, goes into CUNA, half of that South Eagle Road. But anyways, with that, Mr. Chair, I think that's my presentation. Maybe I went a few minutes long. I'm sorry, but
okay. And you plan to bring this back? You plan to bring this back next month?
I can if that's the request. If people want to do more homework, that's fine.
Looking at the clock, I'd prefer that we do that. Give Mr. Lewis and everybody else an opportunity to think about this and to bring your questions back and your points or whatever, if that's okay with everybody.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Leela Klopfenstein with Compass. If there's any information from Compass that's needed prior to the next meeting, please let me know. I will pass that along to our technical team.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, staff communications.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission. So staff communications start on page 35 of your packet, and I'll just highlight a few of those. And I believe, Mr. Chair, you wanted to discuss this first one from Mr. Kraft. We received an email regarding traffic congestion at the 10-mile crossing, specifically at the I-84 interchange. And this citizen is wanting to know what has been done or being considered to ease congestion. So I can pause there if you wanted to discuss that further.
Mr. Wasson, I'm looking at you and you're looking back at me. You're
doggone right, Mr. Chair.
You're up.
John Wasson, ACHD. Number 1, I passed it to ITD because ITD controls that intersection because it's part of their interstate system. However, part of this is going to be taken care of, I think, with the Linder overpass when it's built. It'll take some of the pressure off and put it in my backyard, literally. And the State Highway 16 interchange, I think, will take part of this. But moreover, just like some of the other commissioners have mentioned, I think that really and truly this is something new went in. Everybody wants to be the first to see it. And in 6 months, who cares? I don't care about a Ferris wheel in a sporting goods store. Now, when it comes to hunting season, they got ammo on sale, it may be a different story. But I think part of it was the newness of that, the grocery outlet and a few other things opening up all at the same time.
Mr. Hood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This may not make anyone feel any better, but the other side of the Ferris wheel store, we are working with that property owner on something that is just as traffic generating, if not more than that. So, yeah, so that may be something, we mentioned the ordinance review group, maybe something that development review. Mr. Chair, I know you look at those, get those from the clerk's office. When that transmittal is in, we don't have an accepted application at this point, but it is coming. There are definitely this, at the staff level, we have some of those questions and concerns about traffic generation and what that looks like for 10 Mile and the region, even when we get another, mirrored on the other side. That's what you got to remember is this is only half built out there right now. So there's more coming.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lewis.
this is the point in the meeting where I asked the question, what did the traffic impact study say? And I'll just leave it at that.
I disagree that you can put all this off on Shields. When I got rear-ended last month on this street, I was on the north side of Shields. So I was backed up at Franklin, and we were creeping. This gentleman in his letter mentions a ramp accident. I'm pretty sure it's the one I happened to drive right by and see. So, but I really do like your comments about 16 and Linder possibly taking some pressure off this north-south route. The reason I looked to ACHD for this was that you can blame ITD for the 10 Mile interchange, but then we've got to move the cars once they get off of it. So,
Mr. Chair, absolutely not. And am I blaming but what I'm saying is ITD is the big brother and they have the responsibility to say, we want a signal at this location. ACHD doesn't have the jurisdictional authority to just jack a signal at any location on the ITD network. They have to give the approval for that. And so they'd have to work with us to do the analysis.
okay, thank you. Ms. Hill, someone will respond to Mr. Kraft in some fashion? Thank you. Okay, move along. Anything else in the communications?
Of significance, just an update on the Night Hill Center. The developer has had 5 stop signs have been installed, and they are planning on having painted stop bars painted in the near future. No timeline though. And then lastly is the Doral Academy School Zone. I was in communication with Angela, just kind of asking for an update since there's been interests from council president and just the mayor's office. And so they've been working with Kendall with ACHD on adjusting the timing of the school zone beacons. And they're also close to implementing their school guard crossing program. That hasn't been implemented yet, but they are working on it. But those were the only updates at this time. So that's included in your packet as well.
No, that's fine. And I saw something that I don't think is in the packet this time where that school had found a way to double lane pickup cars or something in the afternoon to help get them off of Cherry Lane.
Yeah, I think I had heard that, but Angela hadn't included that in her email and included that as part of it. But I have additional conversations. So if I hear anything else, I'll include that next month.
Okay. All right, Mr. Watson went to the trouble to work up some information for us on Bell Tower and Copper Cloud. It is not an action item, but he has some handouts he'd like to give you. But in order for him to do that, Mr. Ballard, we need to extend our time a little bit. How many minutes?
Need about 2 minutes.
You need 2. We need more than that to do what we're fixing to do.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I move that we extend our meeting up to 5:45 PM.
You have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Mr. Watson wanted to give you all this before the meeting started, and I didn't dare let him because I knew you'd do nothing but spend the whole meeting reading it. Yes, sir, please.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, John Wasson, ACHD. I'm having Caleb pass out 2 packages. One is for North Tower Bridge Way south of Messina, and one is for Bell Tower Drive west of Paladin. Bottom line is, neither one of them meets the criteria for traffic calming. They fail on the volumes because there is no front-on housing on either one of those streets. So the criteria, since they're both classified as collectors, is 300 vehicles in the peak hour. In the speeds are close to meeting the criteria, but again, they do not meet the criteria because these are collectors. At the back of the bell tower study, I have attached maps. And those maps with the red X show the location where the hoses were actually placed. And the study was done over a 7-day period in April. School was in session, weather was generally good, and I feel relatively good about the results of these studies in that they're accurate and transparent. The fact that they didn't meet the criteria could be counted as a win, could be counted as a loss, but I have to follow the procedures.
And we do appreciate it. Thank you.
But I wanted to get them out to you folks. And if there are any questions, I will stand before, after, or anytime else to answer any of the commissioners' questions other than Commissioner Lancaster.
Seems only fair. Mr. Hood, can you and I and Ms. Hill agree that subject to commissioners contacting one of us and saying, I want this back on the agenda next month, that we can consider this closed?
Yes, sir.
So commissioners, seriously, if you take this home and sit down and study it all this evening or whenever, and decide, I want to talk some more about it, let myself, Ms. Hill, Mr. Hood know, and we will keep it on the agenda next month. Otherwise, we will consider this one beat to death. Okay, and Mr. Wasson, we're still looking forward to more information on Lost Rapids and Bird Park? Okay.
Yes, sir, we are. We just wanted to get the weather as optimal as we could before we did a study.
No, that's fine. Just, I know I keep bugging you. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And then also the Chinden Linder crash data, which I call the U-turn corner. ITD is working on that. Is that my memory?
Mr. Chairman, I thought it was Sergeant Smith who gave us the crash data, wasn't it?
She did. She passed out the crash data, but we have not put it on as an agenda item and haven't looked at it.
Oh.
So if we're waiting on, if we're not waiting on anything else, we can move that crash data on and put this as an agenda item next month. If we're waiting on other information from ITD, we can do that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
So my understanding, I gave what we had in-house, which would just include Meridian police crashes. There is a potential for Ada County to have had some crash reports there. It is our jurisdiction, but it depends on whether we're available or not. I was kind of waiting to see if Mr. Price was going to weigh in with his data as well.
Yes, from the last meeting, I know this was brought up towards the end of the meeting, and in the end, there wasn't an ask. So I am happy to collect that data, but I have not done it yet.
Can you do that before our meeting next month?
Yes. So
Okay.
to be clear, the ask is crashes for the whole intersection or the U-turn movement westbound to head eastbound.
The latter was what brought this to our attention.
Okay. Yes,
If
I will.
in looking at that intersection, you discover something else remarkably interesting, we would like to know that too.
All right, sounds good.
And Ms. Hill, if you would, follow up with ITD, before we have our next planning meeting, and we'll see if we think we have enough to move this on to a discussion item. Okay, anything from ex officio reports? Anybody with any other burning items while we're here?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Kloppenstein.
Thank you. I did pass out via Caleb a poster flyer for our upcoming Compass Education Series event. It's about resilience and really about how to assess a transportation facility's vulnerability to natural hazards and criticality to the transportation network as a network. So if you're interested, there's a public open house, a public presentation on May 29th. So that's an evening presentation. And then there's a workshop that's more geared towards professionals on May 30th. So just wanted to make that note. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carson is just getting so excited because school's going to let out someday. Not yet, but someday. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, John
Mr.
Watson, ACHD. A couple of weeks ago, the commission approved as a budget item about $600,000 for traffic calming. And that means this year, Temple is going to receive, I believe it's 13 traffic calming devices, 13 speed humps.
Tell me where that is, so I'll be sure not to go there.
Bergman to Meridian, and that would be a wonderful idea. But we are putting in about 80 speed cushions throughout the county.
You remember when somebody told you if we put in one of these, everybody will want them? They were right. Never mind.
Oh, yes, sir.
Mr. Ballard, you had something?
Yes, I wanted to revisit a point, and I put this in the context. I don't know if it's a potted plant or sour grapes. And,
Get up on your mic a little bit.
you know, maybe I missed a signal from the third base coach, but we had this Linda Road presentation. And there were 3 concepts proposed in that presentation. And I heard a comment to my right that we have made a recommendation in the past on Linda Road, but I thought we missed an opportunity this afternoon to weigh in again our advisory preference. And I would, along what Mr. Lewis said, why would we choke down a major arterial that crosses most of the county or half of the county and choke it down to 3 lanes? So I'd like to revisit our motion that we were in favor of a 5-lane section.
The motion from a previous meeting.
Well, I go back, I'm thinking that that's probably, I was chairing when we had that discussion. So that goes back 4 or 5 years where we talked about our preference or our priorities for Linda Road. So if there's 3 concepts presented today, which I think they were, then they're all, you know, well documented. I think we weigh in on one of those preferences.
Going once, going twice, Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate that we recommend either option 2 or option 3 without taking a stance on which 5-lane option goes forward?
You could.
Okay.
You're a full-blown member. You can do anything you want in here almost. Not quite, but close.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission recommend to city council that they back either option 2 or option 3 on the Linder Road project that was presented today.
Second.
The motion, we have a second by Mr. Song. I knew she couldn't tell who did that. I'm pretty sure you did, didn't you? Yeah. You were the second?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lancaster.
So I can vote for that motion. That's fine. I would still like to see the Ada County Highway District have an option 4, which is design the 5-lane cross section, but with fewer extras, if you will. Just design the 5-lane road with normal sidewalks and not all the buffers and landscaping, and you have fewer impacts and less cost. But like I say, I can vote for the motion as presented. Just, I wanted to get my 2 cents in about that.
Other comments? Okay, there's a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Hill, you have that? Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Sergeant, thank you for bringing, are you a corporal yet? Or are we waiting for that to happen? That would be yes?
Yeah, he's a corporal now. Yeah.
Corporal, welcome. Thank you very much. I don't know if you'll be able to attend with Sergeant Smith very often, but you're welcome to do so. You can tell it's a real fun day when we meet. Motion to adjourn. Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Lewis and Song. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. You're welcome, sir. Thank you. We having fun yet, Tom?